All right. So good afternoon. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Amelia Larson, and I serve as the Executive Vice President of Innovations and Academic Partnerships at American Reading Company. We will be recording today's session, and you will receive an email with the link to the recording if everything works out well, along with the information regarding our upcoming webinars. Please feel free to submit your comments and questions in the chat box. Lacey and Matt will be monitoring the conversation, and we will have a chance to have some questions and answers. If you are on social media, remember to use the hashtag ArcLearns as you share your learning with others. Today, you are in for a treat. The focus is around implementation of high-quality ELA curriculum, a critical component for moving students to advanced levels of literacy development. Nothing better than hearing from the people doing the work. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Megan Maloney, our Chief Academic Officer, who will be introducing our panelists. Megan?
Thank you, Amelia, and good afternoon, and welcome from all over the country. It's great to see so many educators wanting to learn more about high-quality curriculum. And as Amelia said, get ready to be inspired. We have an amazing group of panelists and Dr. Irvin Scott as our facilitator today, so we're going to have a great hour. I want to first start by introducing our panelists, and then they will share a little bit about themselves, and then we'll move on to the discussion. First is Christine Arado. Christine is the Director of Learning in DuPage County Schools 45 in Villa Park, Illinois. She spent her first 10 years in the classroom where she taught grades 2nd through 5th grade, then 17 years as a building level administrator. She was an assistant principal and a director of early childhood. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. I just wanted to say I'm so excited. When we were preparing for this, you asked us to share a little bit about how we're showing up today. And I just wanted to say that I am really excited. I'm energized, but I am also exhausted. Thank you.
Speaking the truth. Thank you, Christine. Our second panelist is Anthony Bosco. Anthony is the Director of Instructional Leadership and Equity for the School District of Beloit in Wisconsin. Anthony has served as a teacher, college dean of students, assistant principal, building principal, and director of bilingual programs, and interim superintendent. Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Megan. First of all, again, thank you for the opportunity to share what we've learned over the course of the beginning stages of our implementation here in Beloit. And it's just exciting to be a part of an opportunity to share with other practitioners just the awesome opportunity that you have. And just sharing our current context, we are a dual language immersion district, and it's been a pleasure working with ARC through an implementation that allows us to bring the monolingual and the dual lingual together, because that as a dual language district has been a struggle of ours. So really excited to share some of those stories with you today.
Thank you, Anthony. Next is Darren Guido. Darren is the supervisor of instruction in the Cesar Rodney School District in Delaware. Darren is responsible for English language arts, social studies, world language, and English as a second language. Prior to his career, he was a social studies teacher, associate principal, and a principal. Welcome, Darren.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everybody, for having me today. As Megan said, I work in the Cesar Rodney School District. We are the first district in the first state. We were established in 1915. So in our 106th year, we serve over 8,000 kids in a kindergarten center, elementary school K-5, 6 elementary schools, 1 through 5, 4 middle schools, a comprehensive high school, and a countywide school that services kids from 2 to 21. It's a great opportunity for us. We also get to service students on the Dover Air Force Base in one of our elementary schools and in one of our middle schools. And I'm really excited to share some of our experiences with ARC. We currently utilize ARC in grades 3, 4, and 5. we're going back and we're piloting in grades 1 and 2. That's an experience in and of itself going in that direction. So hopefully I'll be able to share some of that with you today.
Thanks, Darren. From Illinois, we have Yolanda Payne. Yolanda is the Assistant Superintendent of Schools in Hazel Crest School District 152 in Illinois. Prior to this, she was the Director of Special Services, and before joining Hazel Crest, she was an administrator in Chicago Public Schools. Welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. We are super excited to be a part of the team as we're going to talk to you from a perspective of our first year being a part of ARC. We're in a small district, a little over 1,000 children, and we've adopted ARC in grades 1st through 8th grade in both of our buildings. We are a district of 2 K-8, pre-K-8 buildings. So thank you.
And also from Hazel Crest, we have Dr. Cynthia Levy. Cynthia is the Director of Teaching and Learning, and her primary responsibility is providing leadership support to her teachers and administrators in the district. Thank you, Cynthia.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I am excited to talk about and share our experiences with ARC. As Ms. Payne said, this is our first year with it, and the implementation process has been interesting, getting people on board, but we are rolling now. So we are ready to talk about how that experience worked for us.
Thank you, Cynthia. And rolling over to the East Coast, upstate New York, we have Jennifer Steinley, Director of Elementary Instruction in the Saratoga Springs City School District in upstate New York. Jennifer's particular area of interest is supporting the learning of the students and teachers and administrators in her district. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Megan. I'm excited to be here. As Megan said, I'm Jennifer Steinley. I'm from upstate New York in Saratoga Springs City School District. We have about 3,000 students in the elementary in which I oversee 6 elementary buildings. We're on the first year of ARC implementation. We started with K2. Next year, we'll move on to 3 through 5, and we're coming off a couple of days of professional development today. The past 2 days, we've been in professional development, so I hope to share some of those experiences with all of you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our facilitator today, Dr. Irvin Scott. Dr. Scott is a senior lecturer at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, in case you couldn't see his backdrop. Irvin has previously worked in K-12 education at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And prior to that, Irvin was a school district employee, worker, a school district teacher, principal, and assistant superintendent and CAO for the Boston Public Schools. Welcome, Irvin. Thank you for leading us and facilitating us today, and let's get started.
All right, let's get started. It's great to see everyone. Thank you so much, Megan, and thank you all of the participants who are a part of our panel, as well as all of those of you who are a part of the audience. And I saw a lot of states popping up, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Georgia, Vermont, Delaware, Illinois. I know I'm going to miss someone, so I'm not trying to mention every state. It's just exciting to have you all, and we're so pleased that you joined us. And I'm so pleased to facilitate this conversation for 2 reasons. Number one, each of our panelists, Wisconsin, I see that, each of our panelists, as well as those of you who are a part of the audience, are doing the work on the ground. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about having this conversation. I have done that work as a teacher, as a principal, as a district leader. And now I spend most of my time training leaders to do the work that you're doing. They want to be in schools. They want to be in school districts. So that's why I'm really excited about this conversation. The second reason I'm really excited is because I think these conversations are tremendously important. Conversations about the implementation of the work, but across district, across systems. We have a lot of conversations within our system What I learned, it is so important to step out occasionally and hear how others are doing. What challenges are other people having? What are the successes that they're having? And how can we do this work in an impactful way? So I want to jump right into the conversation. I want to pick up with some of the themes that I heard already coming out. We've got people talking about dual language implementation. People are in different places as it relates to the implementation. Thank you for your transparency. It's early for some of us. We had some challenges, or we're having some challenges. I appreciate the candor about being exhausted. We want to have truthful conversations around how to do powerful work in an impactful way in the context that we're all living in. And so that's why we're having this conversation. I'm going to start with this question of, let's go to the beginning, right? To the extent that we can, the beginning of the implementation of high quality curricula as it relates to literacy. What were some of the drivers? Why did you go here? Some people might be out there thinking, I'm not sure, should I really push my superintendent to move in this direction? What would you say to a person who's not quite there yet around why it is important to do this work at this time around high quality curricula moving forward? I'm going to start with Yolanda and Cynthia. Just kick us off with that question, and then I'll go around. We'll do Darren next, and then Anthony. Kick us off, Yolanda and Cynthia.
Okay, well, we'll piggyback off each other. But I'm so glad you chose us to go first with this question.
Absolutely.
So for us, it was research. Different districts that we had talked to, different colleagues, we were asking, what's working? What's going on with your demographics? We were struggling. For me, I struggled with progress monitoring and filling in the gap for my students with special needs. Knowing from the psychologist what the deficits were, now how do I address it? What curriculum is going to give me more bang for my buck? So as I began to research different companies regarding that progress monitoring, and I needed real time. You know, I'm dealing with my students with disabilities. I needed something, and I didn't have to wait 3 to 4 months, or I didn't have to wait a week to find out, to be honest. I needed to know in real time where we are so we can continue moving in the right direction, because you know the students, their attention span is very short. So if I'm going down the wrong path, by the time I figure it out, I've lost them. So I needed something that was going to give me that immediate feedback. And so as I, began to go through the PD of myself trying to figure out if this is it, I was sold. I was like, okay, I'm all in, because of my peers letting me know that this worked for them. And so as I got on board, I'll turn it over to Levy, because at that point, Dr. Levy was like, hey.
Absolutely. The one thing that we really wanted to do as a district was have that continuity of curriculum. So when Ms. Payne jumped on board with ARC, it was a no-brainer for me, because we wanted all of our students to have the same type of educational experience. In addition to that, we knew pre-pandemic that our students were reading below grade level. So we know now, in the midst of this pandemic, that our students have lost some time around, I won't give it the whole 18 months, but I'll say at least a year and a half of learning has been lost due to the pandemic and being remote. American Reading, it just brought to us what we needed, the tools that we needed to support reading in our district. And the other piece of it was, and we looked at a lot of different programs, because my curriculum committee, we looked at different programs, and this was a program that was holistic. It was a program that would approach every student where they are and take them where they need to be. And that's what we were looking for. In addition to that, it also provided teachers with the tools that they need on a day-to-day basis to support learning in their classrooms. So for us, it was a no-brainer. We thought that American Reading would support us and help us move our students along this learning journey that they're on.
Thank you, Cynthia and Yolanda. I want to just elevate a couple of things real quick. Research. One of the first things that Yolanda said when she answered my question was research. I just want to make sure we capture that, right? This is not a question around instinct, right? It's okay to do instinct every now and then, but these are students' lives, right? And so what's the evidence that suggests that there's impact happening as a result of these curriculum materials? And there is research out there to support these materials. Really appreciate that. The emphasis on struggling students, trying to get making sure they get immediate feedback. Cynthia talked about continuity across all students, right? Across all students, making sure that all students were being pushed. Last thing before I go to Darren Guido is this point around pre-pandemic. Let's face the fact that we are living in a pandemic, and while we all pray or hope or whatever you do to get out of struggling situations, we want to get out of it. Let's hope that it ends soon. But the fact of the matter is we have to figure out how to do things within these challenging times. We can't wait for a better time to push kids and make sure that they have quality materials. So thinking about how to ensure that we have quality resources during the challenging times is also really important. Darren, why don't you kick us? What was the driver for you guys, and then we'll go to Anthony Bosco.
So we had recently adopted a resource to use in grades K to 2, and we knew that 3-5 was going to be the next resource. So we did our homework like everybody does. We did the paper screener of certain things. We invited companies in, and we narrowed it down to 2 companies, ARC and the one that we were using in grades K to 2 currently. We piloted it in different spots. And we realized that ARC met all the needs. We actually asked our teachers, what are you looking for in a brand new resource? So we matched all those, we did the psychometrics or whatever we had to do. And we got what teachers really wanted. And they realized, although anything new is hard, they realized that the core piece might not be exactly, because it's new. So we didn't actually, we're figuring out how to do the core, but kids are reading books, and they knew that kids were reading books, and they couldn't say, even in grades K1 and 2 with our new resource, that they knew where kids were in the reading, in their comfort level, but they know where their 3rd graders and their 4th graders and their 5th graders are. They know what the kids need to work on. Kids know what they need to work on. So having seen that success in grades 3, 4, and 5, it made us say, we need to look back at K1 and 2 and figure out how can we get that flow from the time we meet them on the first day of kindergarten all the way through elementary school. How can we continue to build on their ability to read independently? We'll figure out the core piece, because with practice using the new structures that ARC has, we'll get that and we'll do that well. But there's no way that you can argue when you see kids reading a book and they're talking about books. We had kids, somebody that I work with closely, she had I think he was in 4th grade. He was an athlete. He's a math kid. And she came in one day and knocked on the door and said, "Oh my gosh, my son is talking about books." She was shocked, because that wasn't something common. That's now common practice that we see with our kids.
Thank you so much. Kids are reading books and getting excited about books. It's hard. You can't do the ARC program and not be excited about books, right? They go hand in hand. A couple of things you said. Pilot. Can you guys hear me? Still hear me? Awesome. You mentioned pilot, tremendously important to test. You said we had a couple. We're looking at 2 different things. I think we would encourage you to look at multiple resources before you make solid decisions, but pilot them. And then the other thing you said was ask teachers what they're looking for. If you're a district leader out there and you're trying to implement something and you don't spend time to ask teachers, can we just say it's probably not going to go that well? Let's just be straight up, right? Ask teachers what they're looking for, something else that you said, and then focusing on grades 3, 4, and 5, and then seeing how it's impacting there, and then saying, okay, what do we need to do earlier? So really thoughtful implementation. Anthony, why don't you kick us off around your context? What was the key driver there?
All right, thank you. Our key driver, again, started with research like the others. We really focused on the resource that we had been using, and then the fact that that resource was not rated at all by Ed Reports, or received poor ratings, and then really using Ed Reports as a starting place. We did do the pilot. We actually piloted twice, kind of pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic. And as we started the process, we really had to step back and look at what our vision for literacy was in our school district, because as a dual language immersion school district, we really had a huge motivation to bring the monolingual and the dual language together, because since the inception of our program, they kind of lived in silos. And so our real big lever with this was to be able to PLC together and do some of that common assessment work and that professional learning together, and then have School Pace as a common platform, so that across both sides, the English and the Spanish, using the Earl and the Neil, that we're able to really articulate some of those foundational skills, those growth opportunities for students in real time, in something we call just in time. The responsiveness, the individualization, the personalization of ERLA and ARC was really something that we needed. Our MLSS is really focused on building for students' needs, and our district kind of vision about really building those relationships and knowing our readers was critical, and bringing that into the ARC kind of decision lens was important. And the last thing I'll say is, as we aggregated data to make our decision about the pilots that we were using, we got some feedback from families and students and everybody else talking about the love of reading. Our resources K through 12 did not really convey that we as a district believed in building that love of reading, and that was really a deciding factor for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. I want to make sure I got this word correct. Did you say the love of reading?
I most certainly did, in all capital letters.
All capital letters. I wanted to make sure you didn't say level, because I love. As a matter of fact, everyone, don't unmute yourself, but this is the way I teach. I want everyone to repeat after me. Everyone say love. Awesome. I think that is tremendously important. I'm hearing this theme about kids being excited about reading, kids being excited about books, love, passionate. Those things have to come through, and that was a key driver with Anthony and his district. He also talked about vision, the importance of having a vision. I know we have to go fast. There's a sense of urgency. But if you go down this road too quickly and you haven't been thoughtful about what is our broader strategic vision about literacy curriculum, and then for Anthony and his school and his school system, not only literacy curriculum sort of tier 1 for all kids, but how do we make sure that we integrate it for dual language kids, for kids who have ELL challenges? And so that we don't end up with, okay, we have our ELL curricula over here, and we've got our sort of standard level 1 or tier 1 curriculum. That's a recipe for disaster. They are trying to figure out how to bring them together to ensure that there is a integrated experience for teachers and for kids, and this curricula allows for that. Very good. Okay, Jennifer and Christine, why don't you kick us off, Jennifer, to that why question, and then you, Christine.
So I don't want to repeat some of the things that other folks have said, but I think our biggest why really is that we are a high performing school. Our state assessments are good or good enough. Our students perform generally pretty well, but we felt like we could be better than that we owed our kids at every level and every age something more than that. We had strayed a bit over recent years and thinking that technology was going to be the greatest thing ever for our students. And when we shifted our thinking about what we really wanted for our students, it was books in hands. It wasn't kids in front of computer screens and reading books. Part of this was really teaching our teachers to teach differently. Our teachers were not practitioners of reading as a whole. We certainly have reading specialists throughout our district, but our general ed practitioners are not reading specialists, and they didn't feel like they had the tools to reach all of our students. One of the things that we did and are doing with ARC is roughly 2 days per building a month. full day in every building, every classroom, and I've been shadowing with them along the way, and they're doing everything. The ARC coaches are doing everything from modeling lessons to meeting with teachers to deep diving into data and talking about how to set up systems in your classroom for conferencing, or even just for meeting with students. What do you do when you meet with a student? We didn't have the tools to do those things before, and it's really been a shift in pedagogy for us. And I do believe that that is going to be the most impactful thing that we could possibly give to our students. We've always had a tremendous amount of books in our classroom. These books are of high interest in our kids. We're hearing what all of you are hearing. Our kids are loving it. Our parents are loving it. But I think our it factor is our teachers, and it's always been our teachers.
Wonderful. Parents, teachers, kids, all loving it is what Jennifer is experiencing. Also appreciate Jennifer starting off with, for the most part, we're performing pretty okay, but it's not good enough. If there's a level that we can go beyond that, and there are materials that can take us beyond where we are performing. And I saw Amelia's point, proficient is not good enough, right? There's something that's called advanced, and there's nothing wrong with shooting for advanced, right? And if these materials will get us there, let's leverage them. Thank you, Jennifer. Christine, bring us home. And then I want us to begin thinking about this question of equity. I feel like many of you talked about equity also already, but if anyone wants just to say, you know what, there's this equity focus also that was driving us, I want to hear a little bit of that, because a lot of people are using that language, and I think that's important for us to focus on. Christine, bring us home on this question. Why?
Well, Dr. Scott, I feel like I'm going to help bring you home, hopefully, and then transition you to the topic of equity, because a lot of the things that my colleagues have spoken to were drivers for our work in District 45. We started with research, ed reports, we used the IMET, we piloted, we did all kinds of things. We brought in, we had our teacher research committee that reviewed materials and came together and had really critical conversations about what our vision of literacy, what we wanted it to be in our district. But what I think that we're really proud of is that we added some non-negotiable District 45 non-negotiables to the IMET. And one of them was that we were looking for a constructivist pedagogy, because that is part of our mission and vision in our district. We were looking for culturally sustaining pedagogy. We wanted to make sure that the new materials supported culturally relevant practices and had culturally relevant materials. It was really important to us, mirrors and windows. And we're implementing kindergarten through fifth grade, both general education and in TBE classrooms. And we wanted to make sure that all of our students had books and materials that were authentic and speak to who they are and help them to learn about themselves and others. And one of the things about, I think, dual language programs and TBE programs is that there aren't as many resources out there, and the teachers and staff have to spend inordinate amounts of time looking for really quality materials. And oftentimes, when they find high quality materials, it is very different from what their colleagues are using. And we also, to Anthony's point, we're looking for materials that would honor our students, their cultures, their backgrounds, their lived experiences, and then would also bring our staff and community together. And ARC did that for us.
Thank you. Something that will bring staff and community together. I think that's a powerful way to sort of end with your thoughts. You also said mirrors and windows, culturally relevant pedagogy. I typed in the chat ed reports. Everyone should go to ed reports and see what ed reports says about the ARC materials. I don't think you should be using materials that have not been vetted by ed reports. That's my personal opinion. And ARC has definitely been vetted in that respect. Cynthia and Yolanda, let's come back to you and talk a little bit about how your district, or how you guys are making sense of this notion of equity as it relates to these materials. And then we'll have other people touch on that a little bit. And then we're going to shift to, okay, so what does this look like? What does this look like in terms of implementation? What does this look like in terms of professional development? What does this look like in terms of challenge and difficulty? But let's start first with, okay, how are these materials situated in your equity agenda? Kick us off, Cynthia, please.
Well, the one of the most important pieces that ARC offers is the ability to meet a student where they are, creating that sense of equity. That student that needs that extra push, and maybe they need to go back a little bit in order to move forward. That equity piece is so important with the curriculum piece of it. In addition to that, we also have students that may need a little more support in a sense of holding a book in their hand and not always online. ARC also offers that piece of having that student to be able to hold a tangible item and being able to sit and see what is going on in this book. When we talk about the small group instruction, that is another piece of equity for us to be able to work with, because we're able to group students that have the same needs and provide them with the support that they need from that group perspective. So if I have an advanced group, I'm able to have that advanced group work together and work at a level that's appropriate for them. And when I have that lower group, I also have enough materials to support them and meet them where they are. So that equity is so important, and it's so embedded into the ARC curriculum, and it's just wonderful for our district.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'll just go right to Yolanda.
Unmute. And then also being able to see themselves in the learning. That's important as our students are reading, even if it's a new experience, one that they have not, but to see someone that looks like them in the readings and have similar experiences where they can identify and give them something to look forward to and give them many aha moments is what I've seen as I've observed teachers in the process of teaching with ARC.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna just do some rapid fires. Darren, you want to jump in there on that equity agenda?
Well, those are the two things that I thought of immediately. The ability that I can be comfortable reading, whether it's in the core text or if it's in my working on my power goals, I'm reading a text that is at my comfort level. But I'm not limited to that. I can pick a book that is above or below at a different comfort level because I'm interested in it. So I don't know if we've had that ability in the past. All the books are high interest. All the books are ones that kids can get from the public library, but they have them in their classrooms. And then the other thing that I thought of was what Yolanda said, and kids see themselves in the text, right? It's not limited to a bunch of people that look like me. There are multiple colors, nationalities, ethnicities, sexual orientation, whatever the differences are that we find in our classrooms, kids can find in the books. And I think that is super important for where we are today. And although that might be uncomfortable for people, we have to have the conversation, because I don't know if it's uncomfortable for our kids. I think it's uncomfortable for other people. And if our kids are not comfortable, if our kids are fine with it, they're the ones who are going to help others be fine with it as well. So I applaud ARC in giving us the ability to have those conversations.
Beautifully said. I just want to acknowledge, Darren, that you look marvelous. But it would be great to see other people also and other diverse experiences, perspectives, and whatnot. I love the point. Anthony, and then Christine, then Jennifer. Although Christine, you sort of kicked us off on that equity question really well. Go ahead, Anthony.
I again, to just kind of piggyback on a couple of key points. Students seeing themselves in the materials, all students. I think that's very, very important. Every student getting what they need every single day. I think that's kind of the foundation of our approach to equity. And then another thing, and Christine touched on this earlier, historically dual language programs, the Spanish side has had to kind of build the plane as they fly it, so to speak. And this raises that kind of idea that everybody in a school community they have access to everything that they need to be successful learners. And I think that's the epitome of what we're talking about.
Awesome. And Jennifer?
So again, not wanting to repeat what others are saying, but one of the pieces here for us in Saratoga that was important is that all students could see themselves in the text. We didn't have text that supported that prior to the implementation of ARC. One of the other things that we're finding as a really important lever for us in the world of equity is a common goal. So for our ENL students, for our students with IEPs, even for our general education students, we've had goals for them before, but we weren't all together moving forward in the same fashion. So right now what's happening for our students, if you have an IEP, there's a power goal for you, of course. And your special education teacher is working on that power goal. You might also have an AIS provider who's working on that power goal. Your classroom teacher is working on that power goal. And what we're finding is that when all of us are working together for a common goal for this child, we're moving them through there quite fast. And they're moving out of categories that we've historically seen them live in for an extended period of time, which is not the goal of special education or of academic intervention services. So the common goal approach for us has really changed the way we're teaching.
Common goal. Yes, go ahead, Christine.
Well, I just wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what Jennifer said, because I also think a piece of the equity is the idea that we look at what assets a child is bringing to the table. And ARC is very asset based as opposed to deficit. And so, for our striving readers, making sure that we're looking at all of our students from that place of possibility, I think is to me the epitome of equity.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Powerful thoughts. I want to jump to implementation, right? We dealt with why, we dealt with equity. I want to deal with what does it look like on the ground? And there are multiple things you can talk about. You can talk about professional development. You can talk about the pedagogical shifts. You can talk about, well, how do you actually hold people accountable? How are administrators getting into classrooms in order to both support, but at the same time push? I heard some people, I think it was Cynthia, who talked about it wasn't as easy when this all got off the ground. What does it look like on the ground? Pick any area that you want to touch on. I'm going to start with Jennifer, and then we'll just go around. Then we'll do Anthony and then Darren. Kick us off, Jennifer.
So in terms of implementation, like so many others, we started with ed reports. One of our, I guess, a classic trouble spot that we had was that among the 6 elementary buildings, we had 6 different ELA programs. They had all started probably as one implementation a decade ago and had morphed into something else. So that was one of our reasons why we chose ARC. But we started with ed reports and teams of teachers. We used different rubrics that were developed from New York State. And we looked together as a group over the course of about a year and a half. We had people come in and then the pandemic hit, so we had to stop, of course. And then I actually wondered if, because of the pandemic, when we reconvened, would my committee feel differently? Because now they had a whole different style of teaching they had learned during the pandemic, and now we're back in person. Would they feel the same way? And they did. They still felt strongly, even though we had switched to completely remote instruction, they still felt strongly about having books in the hands of students and having small group instruction by teachers, knowing exactly what targeted instruction they were working on with kids, and then recording that over time. In terms of this year's implementation, now that we're up and running, like everyone, we have our high flying teachers that are trying every single part of it, and they are reading everything they can, and they're watching webinars and they're participating. And we have the resistant few also, and probably a smattering in every building. One of the things that I'm thinking about now is, now that we're heading into, we'll have a winter break coming up in a couple of weeks. I think it's time to start publicly celebrating. I think to grease the wheels going forward and give people some energy going into those long winter months in upstate New York, we need to grease the wheels a little bit. And I think it's time to publicly celebrate the victories of moving kids from emergency out of emergency in just 2 months, or even just the victory of finally getting all of your kids a regular conference schedule, whatever your victory may be. I think it's time to start celebrating those. And we haven't done that well yet. But that's personally one of my next goals in terms of implementation. And I think that will not only help just our K2 folks that are living it and probably a little tired right now, but also helping think forward about our grade 3 through 5 beginning with their training in the spring.
Thank you, Jennifer. Anthony, and I'm not going to talk as much in between. I just want to hear you guys give some really good, rich nuggets. Go ahead, Anthony.
No problem. Thank you. When we adopted ARC last spring, one of the things that we worked with our ARC support team on was really building a support structure here in the district. We knew that we were going to have the ARC coaches that were going to be on site, but over time, you want that gradual release, right? And so one of the things that we really focused on was how can we use our literacy instructional coaches. They're incredibly dedicated, hardworking people, very, very knowledgeable right here in our district. How can we work to get them ahead of the learning a little bit so that as the ARC coaches came in, we'd also have opportunities for us to make sure that they could sustain that learning, that support, those resources when the ARC coaches weren't there on site. And intersecting with PLCs, just being a resource to work through has been a real opportunity for us. Still some challenges. To Jennifer's part, we have some rock stars that are just absolutely taking it to the goal line and getting it across. And then we have some other folks that we're going to have to continue to build and support along the way. I love the idea of celebrating because we do have a lot of things to celebrate as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Darren, and then Christine.
So we started our pilot in the 18-19 school year, and when we decided to implement then, we did that last year through the pandemic, which was, that was exciting. But I really appreciate my sales guy and our ARC coach. They are phenomenal. We wouldn't be where we are today without the support that they provided us. So when I was talking to our sales rep, and I was like, look, we're starting remote. We're ending remote and we're starting remote. So we need to figure out how do we get books in hands. And that was back when, you had to put the book in the book hospital and kids couldn't touch it for a while. But then we just shifted some of the units we selected or the themes, they were available online for us. So we were able to adjust it and, we were able to teach online. Teachers had the resources online. We paused a couple of units that we knew we wanted to do because it wasn't available online. In our, working with ARC, we didn't miss a beat. And our ARC coach she did elbow to elbow coaching virtually with our teachers. It was great to actually meet her in person this year when she came back with us. So being able to go through, and we were told, you guys are really doing a great job. And we threw everything at our pilot teachers. We gave them as many resources because we knew it was a short time pilot. We wanted them to test out everything. And we provided the support for them at that time. And like we had said, those wins, we are so excited to see those reluctant readers reading books. And somebody told me a story about an interaction that they had with a student. I can't remember the topic, but one student told another student about a book that he might enjoy. The kid said, that's beyond my reading level. But the other kid said, well, look at the pictures anyway. And then he started looking at the book. He said, wait, I know some of these words. I can use this. So it was really cool to see that interaction between the kids. Some of the challenges, again, it's like changing mindsets of what good instruction is, and allowing kids to lead that learning themselves. The teacher needs the support, and it's okay if you're not telling me everything I need. You're getting me on the path, and I'm going to run with it, and you're going to support me along the way. And I think that has been a shift. And when we have really let go of the old and look to the new, I think that's where we're really seeing the growth in our kids and our teachers. Our pilot teachers are the ones we go to now if there are questions. And we keep saying to the current pilot teachers, it's okay. Next year, you'll get better. And the year after that, you'll get better. It's it's a learning process. So we're excited about where we are all over the place, but we're excited about it because we know we're moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Darren. Christine.
So we, similar to Darren, I think we were piloting pre-pandemic and then kind of put on a pause with pandemic, but then we brought it back. We started our pilot again during the pandemic when it looked like it was going to continue on as it has. So we actually adopted mid-year. And so that was a really unique situation. And so what we thought was going to be an unfortunate sort of set of circumstances really, I think, turned out to be very advantageous because last year, from winter through spring, our professional learning with ARC really focused on the IRLA and ENEAL. And so there was a little frustration, I think, on some of our teachers' part, like just let's get to what the units are going to look like. But we really stayed firm that, the IRLA and the ENEAL, this is really the foundational piece. It's the linchpin of the programming. And we really wanted people to have the time and energy, what little they had, quite frankly, to devote to that, because we knew that when we started to implement fully this year, that if we hadn't done that, people would be on even more overload than they already are. So that's how our implementation started. It's sort of a soft implementation. This year, we have early release days. We have art coaches that come and do the building-based coaching in the morning and for a little portion of the afternoon. Then from 2 to 4 on each of those days, we have an art coach that meets with one particular grade level, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and TBE teachers. And with each of those grade levels, we've also partnered one of our instructional coaches and one of our literacy leaders. And so they're becoming sort of that grade level expert and support for our teachers. We also are participating in the Leadership Learning Series, which is phenomenal. Our principals and assistant principals, we meet in the morning, and then we include our instructional coaches and literacy leaders in the afternoon. And then in-house, we've developed this ARC hotline. It's just a Google form that when people are like, we need a lifeline, they can submit it and we get a notification and we try to answer it. And if we can't internally, we reach out to our ARC coaches and they are right there to help us. So it's been a heavy lift, but our teachers, I couldn't be more proud of our teachers in how they really are digging in. In fact, I wish they weren't so perfectionistic. They're really hard on themselves. And, we really want to, we're trying to make them believe that we really mean that we know they're learners in this as well. And we want it that way, because if they're going to struggle a little bit and make mistakes, they're going to be all the better for it than if it's just, they're handed something and it's surface level, looks good. So we're trying to get them to believe that.
So true. Thank you. Yolanda and Cynthia, what would you add to the implementation question, PD and other things?
So I think for us, we went all in, but we started with the administration. We received the professional development in the beginning with our teachers so that they know that we bought into it. We were putting, we had skin in the game, so they knew we were invested. And so we participated in that. And it's good to hear that other districts, you've got your high flyers. We've got teachers that are rocking and rolling with ARC, and they're our go-tos. And then we have others that we're still trying to hold their hand. We're still trying to convince them that, we can see what you're doing. We need you to get on board. So we have those as well, but I think it really boils down to just change. Change was difficult for some. And I don't want to say it was our more tenured teachers, but it was more our staff that was accustomed to doing things their way, not with the result that we would have liked in mind. I wish we had the problem that Jennifer is having over there, but we're not there yet. And so I needed everyone to understand why we do what we do. So for Cynthia, and I'll let her speak more to it, we have to continually enforce the why. But those that are invested, oh, they are rocking and they are rolling. And we see the fruits of our labor already, and we're still in year one. So Cynthia, take it away.
Absolutely. We have varying levels of success with our teachers. Some teachers are at the level of frustration, so we're coaching them through that process. And as Ms. Payne said, we have some high flyers who can teach the program to anybody. They have gone right in, delved into all of the processes and understand the program. And we can see that teacher has made so much gains with her students that when she started, 80% of her students were in red. Now we have 80% of her students in green with a few in yellow and a few in red. So she's doing the program, and she is a testament to what really can happen when you use a program with fidelity. It is a paradigm shift for some teachers because the way that ARC is set up, the teaching process of goal setting and attaining that goal and moving to another goal is very much different from the process of what many teachers have spent years perfecting. So now it is a paradigm shift for them, and we are going to stay the course. We're not going to stop in the middle. We're going to stay the course, and we keep pushing our teachers, and we work closely with our coach. Ms. Boyd, Tracy Boyd, is phenomenal. She comes out to see us monthly, and she is working with our teachers on that ground floor. So it is really, really helping us to implement this program with fidelity.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This is just rich. I wish we had more time. Amelia, any questions you want to from the audience, or you want to interject anything before we hear some summary thoughts from our panelists? It's just been really powerful.
Actually, I just checked with Lacey and Matt. There are lots of affirmations, but no questions so far. I did summarize what each one, the nuggets that you guys gave, I summarized in the chat for people. So everything is there. So you can take us to the final closing thoughts.
Okay, wonderful. We've got about 7 minutes. I want to do what I call rapid fire questions. So I'm going to give you a couple of questions, panelists. I want you to try your best. I know this is hard. It's hard for me to only give a 1-word response. All right. I'm going to try to get at least 2 or 3 of these questions in, and then I'm going to ask you sort of your final thoughts. For example, what's one thing you want superintendents and district leaders to take away from your implementation? But a couple rapid fire questions, and I didn't even give you a heads up on that. So I apologize ahead of time, but you're all bright, you're thoughtful, you're going to do just fine. Okay, 1 word to describe the importance of professional development as it relates to ARC materials. Give me 1 word to describe the importance of professional development from your perspective. Let's start with Cynthia.
Paramount.
Paramount. Okay. Darren.
Necessary.
Okay. Christina. Chris.
Critical.
Critical. Jennifer.
Glue. It's the glue.
Glue. Okay. Anthony.
Foundational.
Foundational. And Yolanda.
Essential.
Essential. Excellent. All right. Wonderful. You did a phenomenal job. All right. 1 word, or maybe 1 or 2 words to sort of get us what's your approach to working with struggling teachers. We've heard a lot about struggling teachers. So I don't want to leave people just hanging. Maybe one or two words, but not a sentence, one or two words around struggling teachers, those teachers who are not there yet, maybe even those teachers who are like, I'm not going there. One or two words to describe your approach. I'm going to start with Yolanda this time.
I'm going to say support.
Okay, support. Anthony.
Change requires grace.
Ah, okay. Jennifer.
Join them, do it with them.
Do it with them. Join them. Darren.
Continual support.
Continual support. Christine.
Power goals for a
Power
teacher.
goals.
One power goal for a teacher.
One power goal. Okay. And then Cynthia.
I would say persistence, perseverance.
Persistence, perseverance. Excellent job. Okay, let's do this final question. We've got about 4 minutes. So if there are people on the call who are system level leaders, they're district leaders, they're superintendents, they're chief academic officers, they are chief operation officers, maybe chief financial officers, they're deliberating how to use some of these additional dollars that we've just gotten as a result of the COVID response and whatnot. What would you say to them around the importance of what you're doing? Let's speak to those people who are in some ways making decisions. Let's start with Cynthia. Try to do it in about a sentence or so.
It is worth the cost. It's worth it. That's it. It's worth it.
It's worth it. That's powerful. Thank you. Darren?
Have the courage to change the processes and then trust the process.
Okay, thank you. It's worth it. Have the courage. Christine.
It will change, truly, truly change children's lives.
Thank you. Change children's lives. Jennifer?
Stay the course. Don't fall backwards and reach for old materials and old habits. Stay the course. Keep moving forward.
Stay the course. Keep moving forward. Thank you. Anthony?
This really makes literacy the focus of your district, truly.
Yeah.
Making literacy the focus of the district. And then Yolanda.
I'm going to sum it all up and just say invest in our children. This is really, you see the fruits of the labor and the academic success of our children. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Invest in our children. It is 1:59 according to my time. That's 1 minute left. I just want to give you guys, I think our audience will do this in their own way, but we just shout you out. We shout you out for the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, the passion, the sense of hopefulness, the sense of focusing on what's best for kids. Listen, let's just be truthful. We're raising this country, this world's future.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple, right? We're raising the future, and being thoughtful, deliberate, and continually committed to this work on that level is tremendously important. And I hear it in what you are saying. I'm going to end with one of my favorite poets. People know that I was a former English teacher. One of my favorite poems or poets is Langston Hughes. I have a whole heap of favorite poets, but Langston Hughes is one of my favorite poems. And he wrote a poem that goes like this: bring me your dreams, you dreamers. Bring me your heart melodies that I may wrap them up in a blue cloud cloth away from the too rough fingers of the world. And that is what poetry might do. Wrap up your dreams, protect, preserve, and hold them until maybe they come true. Columbus dreamed of finding a new world. He found it. Edison dreamed of light, more light, and he made light. All the progress that human beings have made in this old earth of ours grew out of dreams. That is why it is wise, I should think, to hold fast to dreams, for when dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, For when dreams go, life is a barren field, frozen in snow. We are all about building dreams and ensuring dreams come to life. And for that, we celebrate you. Thank you, everyone. It's been a joy to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you,
panelists.
Dr.
Thank you. Thank you. We have no words to express how much we appreciate the work you're doing every day. And for next month, for January, we are going to give you an opportunity to actually rewatch our webinars from 2021. From starting in July, we have had monthly webinars that have been incredible. So please make sure that you take the month of January to catch up so we can pick up again in February. We'll see you then.